Hello YouTubers, DE Fan 3D coming at you out here from the results of last weekend on the 17th of August here. Now we're coming towards the end of it on Labor Day weekend, which is really cool. And like I said, 20 years ago, this on Monday, or the 6th actually of October, September, the 6th of September was the ASA event taking place at Elko Speedway 20 years ago. Mike Garvey winning that. So Labor Day weekend always holds a special place in my heart for racing, especially the Minnesota State Fair being the last one in 22 years soon ago in 2002. And it actually, 22 years later, lands on the same date on September 2nd of 2024. So then again, September the 3rd of that Tuesday, first day of school for everybody except for this guy. So I graduated in 2015. But that was also the year Jacob Gady won his second championship in the 72. Speaking of championships, Jake Ryan, Steve Anderson Jr., or my bad, check that. It's Jake Ryan, Chad Wallen, Steve Anderson Jr., and then the 31 of Racing Ryan Verner. That's your top four. Kind of further in the back, you see Colin Stalker, and then Jeremy Wolf also close too. He's fifth in the 32 ride. Ryan Verner, Racing Ryan Verner, just ahead of him by a few points. Probably about a gap about yay big. But other than that, Colin Stalker, Chris Merritt Cruiser, the 8 and 3 looking good. 10th is Donnie and the Rocket Reavers, and he fall back 5 spots from that. From 10 to 15, you'll find the 75 of Joel Tyson. And I'm hoping those two guys can be there this weekend. I'm of course going to be there, so I'll go 3 more times this year. I got this weekend, Thundershook 93, and then also to Championship Night. And then those two are back to back. And then Saturday for Oktoberfest for the Big Late Model ARCA or ASA Midwest Tour qualifying and practice. So that's going to be fun to take a look at that, and show you guys all the snazzy paint schemes they have on those cars. So it's going to be sweet, and then also do some driver interviews, and looking forward to talking to Dan Ferguson. I'm going to get him a question of what it was like for his 2002 rookie season in ASA with that battle he had with David Stremme, which was kind of close, but towards the end of that season, David Stremme took off like a rocket, and that 21 Scott Lefevre car from Lakeville, Minnesota, could not catch that 11 Meyer car. So it was pretty hot for Stremme that year in rookie, and it's pretty awesome. But other than that, looking good. Now Dwayne Barons was last weekend, which was a cool tribute race. Also Scott Kingery's memorial. Scott Kingery, Thunder car driver I grew up with. Seeing him towards the end of his career, but he also was dealing with cancer, which he succumbed to in 2013 when I was in high school. And then Dwayne Barons, many years down the road, like I think like the early 90s. It was before I was born, but he passed away in a snowmobile accident, which was unfortunate. And the 40 car that the Reavers family owns or just has, and they store it and they bring it out every year. That's a really cool one. Unfortunately, the 39 LE Chevelle for Dan Ryan's car, that has disbanded, so they got rid of that car. The original owner of that, Kent Eastlick, has that, and he's going to turn it back to its former glory with the blue and the 80 back on the car. And if you have the 2001 ASA Minnesota State Fair program book, it shows that 80 blue Chevelle in a sportsman division class for that car. So in the photo, and there was a big wreck involved with it. I don't think it got wrecked, but it drives right past this wreck, and it's pretty interesting. And my good buddy Connor Peterson texted me a picture of that because he has that program book. I have the one from 2002. So yeah, so it's pretty awesome. That was a cool one. I have been to that one, I think twice. If I remember correctly, I've been to that one twice, and it's very, very cool. And it's cool to see how the super, or the, I still call them the super late model class because that's what I grew up with them. But all the local super late model drivers, they all have 40 flags in their windows, so that was pretty cool. And I was there last year, and of course you saw my frustration with the 6 of Owen Giles with the 75, and then Owen was involved with that big wreck, and he actually has a click in his wrist because of it. So I did feel bad for him about that one. So when somebody gets in my favorite driver, I kind of get stern with that. But if that certain driver gets involved with a wreck, then I just kind of let bygones be bygones. But that was a bad wreck. So, but yeah, that you can take a look at that on my channel. And so yeah, but other than that, John Varner, thanks for the tip about that 31 car being fourth in points. I was going to talk about that in this video, which now you've heard, and hopefully you enjoy hearing me talk about that 31 car. So, and like I said, it's housed underneath the Dundas Corporation of Donnie Reavers Racing. So you got the 31 car there, the 75, the 41. When Dylan Moore used to run, he also had the 54 car in there. And the one Dylan Moore story I always think fondly of is 2 of them. In 2012, he drove the Biggie late model class before he went to the Advanced Auto Parts Series, which I have a few videos of that 54 car. There's a good shot of the 2012 Biggie late model event. I think it was opener that year, but Dylan Moore had the 41 Biggie late model car, and it was a Donnie Reavers built car, but it had LifeSpark on the hood. So it's kind of reminding me of when Truex Jr. ran the Bass Pro Shop number 8 car. He used Donnie Reavers' number, but the sponsor of it was from Joel Tyson's car, so it was pretty cool. And it was kind of like when Truex also too ran the Wrangler 8 car in 2004, 20 years ago. I have the diecast car of it. So there's some it's kind of like a NASCAR vibe where you see another driver sponsor on a car, and then that number is the same number. So it's kind of cool to see the similarity in the late model division. So in the Big A late models and the super late models, it's kind of the same thing between the Cup guys and the Busch guys, but if you get one partnership, you can trade off numbers and run the same number, which is really cool to see kind of a Busch Series vibe with a late model division. So it's really cool to kind of pin that. And then in 2013 at Thunderstruck, there was a wreck on the front stretch which wound up the 54 being turned. I don't remember who turned him. I have to look back in the video, but it flipped his 54 car upside down. And I was like, holy smokes. And we were all like, whoa! And it was a big deal. And we still talk about that one. That was 11 years ago, so that was pretty huge. And Dylan was all right. I was nervous about him, but to walk out and we were all applauding that 54, that was, oh my gosh, he had a heck of a hit. And the sticker, I remember quite fondly because he had the skull with exhaust and flame shooting out. That sticker is the same logo that Donnie Reavers had on his cars. Prior, in the earlier years when I saw him, he used to run that sticker in 2006 to 2008 on some of his older cars, and it's pretty cool to see that on Dylan's. So that was kind of a cool Easter egg find there. And then 10 years ago at Thunderstruck, I call it the longest night. It was really good weather starting out, and when we had ARCA Midwest Tour qualifying, Jonathan Island timed in, but right as that, we got this big massive front coming, and it was still light up, but then you could just see the transition from day to cloudy to partly cloudy, then all of a sudden darkness starts rolling in. It's like somebody just turned on a shower head, just poof, had us in a really good weather front delay for quite a while. And I remember the pace vehicles, the sponsor vehicles, there's about 4 to 5 sponsor deals with this pace car driving around the track constantly to dry that track out, because this is a local, well, it's an ASA ARCA Midwest Tour event, but there's no track dryers for these. It's not like a NASCAR ARCA Menards event where we had that last year to our pleasure, and it was cool to record the first time we're seeing track dryers at Elko Speedway, which was really cool. They still had the Air Titans there this year too, but we didn't have that, so you had to just drive street cars around, and it took about 4 to 3 hours to dry that track, and then for just to have air come up out of it and just kind of air it out. It's a 3/8 paved oval track. That's not like you're going to La Crosse or you're going to Iowa or you're not going to Winchester where they're kind of bigger. This smaller track dries out fairly quickly. So that's where it was good for that. But the thing was, it pushed everything back. So then we still had to qualify all of the cars for the Arca Midwest Tour. Then we qualified the Big 8 late models, and we're doing single car qualifying. And there's about 29 to 30 tour cars there. Same about a number as it is for Big 8 late models, but not all the cars run because you have an A and a B main feature. And then the first like 3 to 4 cars in those features, those guys are if they're enough to get in, they get into the show. Everybody there's kind of hands back. They still stay there at the track, but they don't run that race. So we did that for the Big 8 late models as well, and then everybody else did their qualifying, their feature races. So it was really good. But right about for the time that the Big 8 late models started that race there, I think that one was a 100 lapper, and then or it was about I think it was a 93 lapper for Dan Ryan's car number, and then the super late models of the Arca Midwest Tour, they had a 125 to get in. So about that time the 93 lapper was done for the Big 8 late models. I looked at my flip phone at the time. It was a Pantech flip phone before I have this Samsung Galaxy S22 using on my camera for my phone for my channel now. This is before the channel even existed too. I looked at my Pantech flip phone and it said 11:30, and I looked at my buddy Austin Gunbiner and said, we have 125 laps left to run. He's like, yeah, we're gonna be in for the long haul here. So we still hung up. All the 28 super late models came running out of turn 2. They all lined them up on the front stretch, all like cocked sideways, like the Arca cars had it, where they're all like this sideways. It was very, very cool, and they announced each driver off, and it was cool to see it was really cool to see Jason Schneider there. That was huge for me. Missed the dude being at Elko, so shout out to Jason Schneider. Dan Ferguson was there. Jonathan Island was there. Travis Sauter was there in the 99 car, which was really cool. And so that was pretty cool to see that. That night, Brian Djorkovic was there in the 43. Darren Wolke was there in the number 8 Ford Fusion, which was really cool to see that. And then, of course, Dan Ferguson was there. I even remember his qualifying practice times. He was so hooked up in that 36. I even told a lot of people around me that, watch that 36 car tonight because he might win this thing. And Matt Gady was there at the time. Jacob Gady was there. Their cars were black and orange with the 2872 numbers, so that was cool. And Ty Majeski was there. I wasn't a huge fan of the 91, but I certainly didn't want him to win that thing. And so yes, there was a few others, and also too the one car of I can't think of that dude's name right now, but that one car was there, so that was cool. So that was cool for that. And then I'm trying to think here off the top of my head. The 48 car was there in the super late model event. I don't know who drove that 48. Also, too, Joel Tyson was there in the 75 car, and he had his light spark ride all looking good and snazzy. He was even using Donnie Reavers' tour hauler, and I don't know what ever happened in this rig, but this rig was hooked up in 2014 to 2012. Donnie was sponsored by Apple Autos, and this was a sleeper camper with like a NASCAR hauler trailer. This thing made everybody look like peanuts because this hauler was huge. It said Apple Autos, big 41 on the side by the back of it, and it had a camper sleeper truck hauler, and I'm just like, man, that is huge. It was like about a $200,000 rig, and everybody else has a regular trailers that they pull beside or their gooseneck ones, and they're just driving a super duty diesel Ram Chevy Silverado and a Ford, and I'm like, man, that dude is hooked up tonight, son. I was like, dang. And I hung out with that team when it was raining, so that was kind of cool. And they covered up the 75, and I told Donnie, I said, it's kind of funny and strange to see your hauler with the 75 car, but it kind of reminded me of like DEI for Chance 2 Racing. If Truex Jr. needed a hauler and his was like broken down, just borrow another Budweiser hauler and have the Busch car in there for the primary backup. So it was like the same thing for a concept, and I thought that was pretty cool to see that. And so that was really cool. And but yeah, the field of those cars in 2014, boy, that was a good stacked field of 28, 29 supers, and it was kind of cool. It almost reminded me like Around the World where the start of the race, here's these cars right here, but then you round out towards like the middle of the backstretch, and there's like the last car right there. I thought, man, they take up half the dang track out here. It's like, jeez, this was fun though. So yeah, 125 laps kicked in, and about halfway, I looked at my phone clock. It said 12:30, and I thought, man, this is nuts. So, but they kept rolling, and by that time, towards the end of the race, it was 1:30 in the morning, and so, yeah, but I told Austin Gumbiner after the race was over, getting close to it, I told him, I said, hey, I tell you what, I don't feel like leaving right now because I'm claustrophobic. I can't hang with all these peeps, so we just hang in the garage here. He's like, fine by that. So we did that for a few hours before everybody else was leaving out of there, and also too, it gets really, the parking lot at Elko, it gets very congested on a big, especially Thunderstruck. This is like our Daytona 500 towards the end of the season for Dan Ryan, who passed away ALS in 2009 on January the 2nd, which was such a travesty. But I was at the first one in 2008, so nice win to Jacob Geedy on a nod of that one. So that was huge. The race went well. Dan Ferguson won it, which I called it, and I called it after practice even, because that 36 was top on the board, and he just looked so good. And Dan Ferguson knew how to drive this track very well. Also, too, he had a mentor, Dan Ryan, taught him how to drive too. So they would swap information. And cool thing too I heard about that night was that Dan was the last person always to leave Elko with his 39.9 or 93 late model or whatever car he had at the time, with a Sportsman, hobby stock, Thunder car, or whatever you want to call that class back in the 90s. That's what he ran, and with that. And then also too, I saw him run the late model division in 2000 and 2005, maybe a little sooner than that, about 03, maybe 04, but I saw him run that 93 car, and at that, it was close to that point where I was missing Dale Earnhardt a lot, and seeing Dan's 39 with that font that he had, I thought that's a good touch. And unfortunately, Dan actually passed away at the age of 49, and being an Earnhardt fan, it's like brought me right back to February the 18th, and I thought, man, they run the same font, same age, can't be a coincidence, but damn, that really sucks. But I think about that, but it's a good tribute. I got a die-cast car made out of his from 1998 with a silver hood. Made that in 2014, brought it out, and got a lot of cool comments from two people that I really admire a lot, Connor Jorgensen and Dan Ferguson, during the autograph session that day. I had the car with me, and I showed it to both of them, and Connor was like, you made that? I said, yeah. And he's like, where did you do that? I said, well, I bought the car. It was a Christmas present for me. Got it last year in 2013 from my uncle. And the more I looked at this Kurt Earnhardt late model mom and pop's car, I thought, I got to turn this into Dan Ryan's 93. So I brought it to the media center at Open Campus 8th hour at the time, and decked it all out with printer paper. I sized up everything on the Word document and got it all cut out. And the librarian at the time, she's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm putting together this car for Dan Ryan. It's his memorial race in 2 weeks, and I'm going to deck this thing out and give it to him. Or not give it to him, but show it off. And she's like, that is really impressive. And got the chrome Sharpie, took the hood off the hinges, and started decking that out, even colored the rear spoiler silver. And I put all the logos on it with double-sided sticky tape, and it's not glossy finish. It's just printer paper, but I still kept good care of the thing. And Conrad Jorgensen said, wow, dude, that is really impressive. And Dan Ferguson chimed in and said, how'd you get the hood silver? I said, I used a Sharpie silver chrome one. He's like, no shit. I said, yeah. He goes, dude, I remember that car with that exact hood style because he ran the silver one in 1996 to 1997. Said he did. It was car 39. He's like, did you look at all the race footage for that? I said, I did. And I also found a photo of it for the 4th annual Thunderstruck 93, the old poster of that had his front of the car with that silver hood. So I used some of the graphics for that to blow that picture up, and I cut the decals off from that. I even got the number, the headlight number I used for the front of that poster to cut it out and stick it on the front inside the headlight. And he's like, dude, you were very fine detail with that. And he goes, I remember that his funeral, they had his car up on the bank, and it was that car with that silver hood on it. And I said, it certainly was. And they even did a peace lap for Dan. Before they buried him, they drove him out in the funeral concession car for Elko opener in 2009, and then they had him off. But I was there for that one, and that was huge. That was a big deal. I'll never forget that day neither. So, but 2014, boy, that one sticks in my mind big time for a lot of good reasons. And that autograph session was a big deal for me, and that by far was the biggest Thunderstruck 93 moment I'll never forget in 2014. And we still talk about that one, and I dibbed it the longest night because after me and Austin left, it was 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and I didn't get back home to my place around 2:45. So it was a good time that night in 2014 on the longest night ever in Elko history. And if I don't know, but if we ever get a repeat of that, that'd be something. But we did ever have our first postponement of this race last year, and I told everyone at Elko the phone, or at Elko, or kind of everyone at Elko this year off camera. I said, well, we kind of got thunderstruck. And they're like, yep, that's a good way to put it. So, but you know what? When at Rockingham after Dale Earnhardt died, they didn't get the racing on Sunday because the angels in heaven were crying. You could say the same thing about last year, how Thunderstruck 93 didn't happen because the angels of heaven were crying at Elko for Dan Ryan, and I definitely will take that one to my grave with me thinking about that. So same concept again, but definitely this is our Daytona 500 of September, and this is a big one, so I'm looking forward to it. It's on the 21st coming up, but looking forward to this Labor Day weekend too. This is going to be fun. Looking forward to bringing you guys along with me for this one. Driver interviews will be good. Talking about that one in 2014, God, it gives me chills every time I talk about it. So just stars, nothing's planned for me. Just stars align right up for me to have a good time at this place, and it's really cool to talk about it now and my experiences of what didn't happen with my channel in that era, but it was really cool to see that. And I think as we start getting closer, I'm going to name off all the drivers. I did name off a few, but I'm going to look back at that sheet to see who all was there that night for that Archimedes Tour of 2014. And that race is on YouTube. I have watched the whole thing about 10 times during the off season. I go back and watch some of these older race footage, and I do that too to see what I can learn for this channel the following year, and then maybe pick up a few things during like a year that I'm already in currently. So I do that for information, and the cool thing I like about it is seeing the cars run and the performance skill level that these guys are at Elko. I can kind of see, I can watch all the race and I can pick up some stuff, and I can still see some of that same prestige and there's another word, consistency level. It's still there for 2014 to 2024. The consistency is still about the same, and it's kind of cool to see that, where it's like, wow, I'm watching all the race, but the cars still drive about the same as they do now. So it's kind of cool to see not a whole lot has changed, and it's pretty cool. And things have changed around that, kind of around with everything being like it is in the world. But you know what? There's a few things that don't, and Elko is one of them for that driving style. So it's still that older two groove, get after it, be 3 wide, possibly 3 wide. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see. And Nick Padinsky was there in the 22 as well, and same for the Weinkauf, Jason and Chris Weinkauf, and the other 75 and the 76 car. I did tell Joel that in 2014 when Chris was there in the 75, I said, I like that 75 at Chris, but don't tell him this, but I think your 75 for Life Spark and the performance that Donnie Reavers gives you, I think you're better off with that than he is for a Wisconsin guy. And he's like, hey, I like hearing that. So he set me on the shoulder. So that was cool that day in 2014. Thanks again for that, Joel. I'll never forget that. And me wearing your shirt and my custom hat, it's pretty awesome. So I sport it with pride. So it's pretty cool. So, and it's a good Wisconsin border battle. And even Michael Bilderback was there in the 2. And Michael, I definitely appreciate having you on my channel, and I definitely grew up with this guy a lot, and he had some flashy paint schemes on that too. So if he's ever back to an ARCA ASA Motors Tour car again, ooh, I like to look forward to that. But his brother Ricky used to run too. He never ran at Elko. He ran at Milwaukee a lot. His number was 22, and he had a flashy paint scheme on his 22 car as well. And I'd like to see Ricky come back at some point, like Matt Gady, but Matt's kind of done and gone after snowmobile accident he sustained in 2016, 2015. It was around that same time, like a few years after Thunderstruck. So unfortunately, but I definitely feel bad for that situation. But he's still doing good. He's working with his brother Jacob, who's nailed down 10 track championships at Elko to the one that Donnie Reavers had of 9. And I watched all of Donnie's championships from the start of 2000 all the way to 2012. And then 2013, that was one, I think that was 2013 one. That might have been one. I have to look back. I think maybe, ooh, man. Oh, man, I know these guys' championships pretty good. That one's kind of eluding me right now. It'll probably come back to me, but I definitely know from 2014 to last year, it was all the Jacob Gady show. So, and a lot of drivers were they were loving the racing, but they just could not stand that 72, which happens from time to time. But I mean, it is racing, but you just have to go by performance standards. But also too, the 72 had something that the other guys didn't. That's a crate engine. And some of these guys do have crates, but they're not up to snuff as that 72 is, and you really got to be belting those bolts pretty doggone tight if you got any shot to get around that 72. So, but Jake Ryan's looking like his own self again, leading these points championships and winning a few Czech championships himself back in the day. But it's cool talking about his skill level in the 19 car, and Chad Wallen looking pretty good. And seeing Chad Wallen with the Jake Ryan 19 kind of gives me Raceway Park vibes on the 89 at Adam Royal and the 52 at Chad Wallen. They couldn't get away from each other. They were drawing like Ted Richmond and Dale Earnhardt back in the 80s. I'll tell you, that's Folgers 25 and that 3 Wrangler car. It's like the orange 89 and the 52 black car. It was the same vibe, man. They could not get away from each other. And I watched those Raceway Park videos a lot too. And damn, that's impressive. So definitely really cool. So there's definitely a lot of good vibes and on that, and the consistency level on that's about the same too. So, and like I said, not a whole lot has changed for these late model drivers. So it's pretty cool to see. And I'm saying some stuff that's pretty important too that a lot of other guys don't really think about. It'd be kind of fun too to get Jason Searcy's opinion on this, because it'd be fun to see what he would think of this information, because I'm sounding like him with these stats. But I mean, he gives out stats, but I kind of take it to the extreme level of talking about older races, and that will also gears back to the paint schemes that I really dig too back in the day as well, because every time I talk about these cars, the paint schemes start coming back to me, and I thought, man, there were some banger ones back in the day that I grew up with. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So my grandfather taught me a lot back in the 2000 and 2005 years of this track. And then as I got older in high school, I started printing off about one sheet of paper, had about 25 late model Elko cars, and even everybody from the Midwest. I had about 30 sheets of these guys that I would jam in between every other page in my Context U.S. and World History book. And I keep these books on top of each other, so every other page I would scan a section that we were reading. The other, I did not hesitate at all. I just kept that photo of those cars on there, because I typed on everybody's name that drove these cars, and I memorized these pages so well for these drivers. Even though studying you can multitask, and if you can graduate multitask, you're good. But I would multitask and scan a section I was reading and scan late model drivers' names in their cars. That's why I'm so good right there. So it's pretty cool. So that was really sweet, and I did that, and I've always wanted to share that. So now it's out there, and I still graduated. I'll never forget those days in 2013 and 2014. That's what led me to the longest night ever at Elko, because I started talking about stats then too off camera, and these guys are like, holy crap, dude, you're talking about stuff like from 5 years ago. And it's like, how do you remember? I said, well, I got your picture of your car right here. He's like, what? So I can't remember everybody's name I've done that to. I've done it to about 25 drivers at Elko that I've gone like, how'd you find that car? And it's incredible. So I'm quite ecstatic with my stat knowledge, and hopefully you guys are taking this to heart because I freaking love talking about it, and I love, and that's one thing I'm good at is blowing people's minds, and that's one thing I'm really good at too. So because I go back and watch older races and older race footage, and then when I go back and tell these drivers, I kind of hide that secret, but now since the secret's out, that's how I know these guys so well too. But I go back and just scan the good old days. But that's also why too how I got all these hats and these shirts is because if you can back your knowledge up, good things can come of that, like getting free gear from a few drivers that have gotten from Jason Schneider, got his Hooter shirt. Big thanks again to Conrad Jorgensen for that. Conrad Peterson for that as well. He's gave me some pretty sweet stuff as well. Joel Tyson, Donnie Reavers. Thanks again for you guys for that. And Race and Ryan Varner, they gave me some t-shirts as well for that. I still sport those off from time to time. I just really just always, when I was younger in 2014, my big thing was I always wanted to own a Joel Tyson shirt. And I've been after this shirt for a long time. I remember him changing this font number in 2010, and I followed every single 75 car that Joel drove that time. I still remember the other ones that he ran, including his championship rookie car in 2006 at Elko Speedway. That one was a Monte Carlo. That was cool. It was all white. But the others I find more fondly because of that paint scheme and that style of this number 75 font. I follow that car very intently and close and know that it's housed in Donnie Reaver's building. I thought, man, it's like Truex Jr., Dale Earnhardt Jr. of Elko Speedway, and then Dale Earnhardt of Elko is racing Ryan Varner and John Varner. So you have that NASCAR late model connection right there. It's like these guys are like the Busch and Cup drivers of this track right here. So it's pretty cool, and the others are cool too. But definitely, really love that, and it's pretty sweet. And if I think about it, I do get emotional because it means a lot to me to talk about these guys with a lot of passion. And that's why I said I don't have a favorite driver. If anybody asks me in Elko, who's your favorite driver? I'll give you about 25 names because I cannot just narrow it down to one because it's what I've seen in the past for their driver's skill ability, for their friendshipness, or how kick-ass paint schemes they had on their cars. And I got like 30 favorites. Probably now it's up to like 50, and that's why I don't have a favorite late model driver. Because these guys also tour that ASA Arkham, it was touring super late model series. If they have that standard, that list just gets longer and for a favorite driver. So don't ever ask me that, who's your favorite late model driver, because I'm going to give you about every name that I like. And it's going to be a list about here to Timbuktu University. So, but I'm like the Hank Williams Jr. of being at a good time where he grew up with having visited with Roy Orbison, Fats Domino, Ray Charles, Jerry Lee Lewis, and all these people were there because they all had all had a hit on his dad's sons. And then as he starts getting popular with his stuff, he just keeps meeting people, and the list goes on from Perry Como to Waylon Jennings to Johnny Cash to Willie Nelson, and start meeting other favorite people that he likes, like Terry Bradshaw. He's a football guy, no longer, but he was at one. He's a football guy, but not as hardcore as he used to be. But he's just in this wonderful situation, and then here I am with my being from a grandfather that's gone to a lot of these NASCAR races and then going to Elko and his span, and then I'm here and I start talking about these stats, and then they start giving. So here I am in this wonderful situation where I start meeting these drivers left and right. We start hitting off, and next thing they start giving me stuff, and I'm just like, damn, I'm just in this wonderful situation where it goes to Conrad Jorgensen, Dan Ferguson, Jason Schneider, Donnie Reavers, and the list goes on and on and on and on, and I'm just like, keep it coming. I'm just like, damn, man. So I'm like I'm kind of like a little bit like the poster child for Elko because I got the stats to back this up with. And if you can back up a lot of these stats and knowledge, it's pretty badass. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was probably Chad Wallen that had the 2013 championship. And if not him, it might have been Dan Ferguson, one of those two. But it's pretty interesting to see that. So it's pretty cool. So, but definitely very, very cool indeed. But I'm definitely happy about that. And of course, 2013 was a sad year because that's when Raceway Park got let go. And I still remember 2014 going to Elko going to Elko in 2014 with my buddy Austin Gunbiner, and we drove the Shakopee route past Valley Fair, and we drove past Raceway, and I cried inside his car. And he's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Look to your right." And he's like, "What happened to Raceway Park?" And because they still had the billboards there, but the billboards were getting like taken out, so you could only like race and then par, because they took a lot of that stuff, so a lot of the billboards were gone. He's like, "Did they get rid of that track?" I said, "Yep." And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Yep." And so we're still going to Elko, but he's like, "Dude, are you okay?" I said, "Man, it's like losing the state fair track at the Minnesota State Fair all over again, buddy." And he's like, "Oh, dude, you hang in there." So that felt really good to get that from him. And he says, "If you have a YouTube channel, will you ever go out there?" I said, "I did," and I do, and I have that channel of that video of me out there at the grounds of that track. But I definitely walk in Elko like I own the joint, man, and it's huge for me, and that's paid off big time for me. And the drivers just love the heck out of me, and a lot of the fans do too, and including a few others that I've came to know quite fondly, and even thinking about the Conchottis right now for those guys. I grew up with their racing career at Elko. I'm missing them this year. They're out dirt racing, but definitely another good shout out for those guys as well, because it was fun. I do make a lot of people jealous too, talking about a few other drivers that I've seen in the past run, and Brian Reffner, Rich Bickle. I've seen him drive. And I've seen him even race at Elko in Thunderstruck Division 2 in 2013, the year prior. And Rich was there in the 45 car. I saw that one. That was pretty cool too. And that was on Thunderstruck 93 night where the 54 flipped over on its roof of Dylan Moore. But I saw that, which was really, really cool to see, to say the least, for that. And I've seen Dick Trickle out there. A lot of people get jealous when I mention that didn't get to see Dick drive in a late model. And I saw him race the ASA series, and he also ran his regular cars. He ran his, in 2004, and 20 years ago, he ran that old white Monte Carlo car that was the body shell, but the chassis was Goldie. The 89 Camaro had a Monte Carlo 5-star body on it, and that car's still around. I think it's being repurposed, but I have seen it being for sale out there, and Connor Pearson wanted to buy that car, but he wanted to buy an Ellie instead because of Dan Ryan and the legacy that he had at the track. So, but he did say if he could have at the time, he would have liked to buy Dick's car, but because of Dan Ryan's Elko history, he did buy that Chevelle and then had to give it back, unfortunately. But it's going to be a bummer not to see that Chevelle out there. But it's going to be good. So, but other than that, I saw him run the Papa John's car in 2006 for Dick Trickle, and the 2007, his last time he ever ran a late model was the famous Dave's car in 2006, and then the Papa John's car in 2007. And that Papa John's car is the same car that ran at La Crosse for Oktoberfest in 07. And on Facebook, which I remember, Teddy Casciati was in the driver's seat of that car. And that car's still out there. It doesn't have an engine in it, but it'd be cool to, if I could ever get to a chance to be around that car, that'd be pretty cool, because I did see that car drive with Dick, and every car he had always had a cigarette lighter in it. Even the late models had one in his 2002 State Fair car. That even had a cigarette lighter, and I'm pretty sure he did smoke during that ASA event in 2002 at the State Fair, 22 years ago. So I did get that treatment. So Dick, that was cool. You're smoking inside your ASA car. He probably was doing the same thing in 2003. And a little Dick Trickle tidbit here is that when they would give him the Winston box of cigarettes, He'd open it up, toss the Winston cigarettes out, and he'd stick Marlboros and close that with Marlboro Reds inside a Winston box. And you carry a briefcase with him, and when you open the briefcase, there's Reese's cups and cigarettes inside that in there, and it's pretty cool for that. And after the races, especially at Elko, doesn't matter where he is, but primarily at Elko or Wisconsin, there's a beer to be had, and he'd have 95 beers out, sit on top of a cooler, and hold court, and you do this at bars like Cronies and La Crosse. It's like two minutes away from the track. There's a bar called Cronies in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He had 95 beers, smoking cigarettes, and hey, did you like that race on La Crosse? Yeah, we're gonna have a good time tonight. So that's gonna be pretty cool. And the one thing I'd like to see if for an interview would be a Ward Burton and a Dick Trickle interview. So Dick, how was that race for you? Well, they did pretty good, and I think the car did handle pretty good for us out there. And Elko was going to be a good track too, and we ran pretty well to State Fair. What did you think about that race there at State Fair there, Ward? We're gonna be in that car over and we're gonna be running out there pretty good. Yeah, we got these guys all going out there. Boom. So yeah, I thought that. So I kind of thought that was pretty cool. They have a fun interview to do. So, and hopefully make you guys laugh on that one. So, but talk to you guys pretty soon here. But looking forward to this weekend at Elko.